Hi, my name is Erika, and I'm going to answer these questions. I'm in London. So I'm going to say what I thought was happening in that video clip. I'm in London, England, FYI. So the police were kettling miners in what I can only presume was the north of England, but there were also mines in Wales, so it could be anywhere. Why are they angry? They're angry because the Thatcher government was shutting down the mines. Now, to bring it back to Canada, I know that in Newfoundland, for example, Grand Falls, Windsor, is a town that was like a symbiotic organism with the mill, like the paper mill that was there. Like the entire town was an ecosystem where every organization in both of those towns was for the mill, was of the people for the mill. So anything that happened with the mill directly affected every single person within the community. So when question 3, who do you think is in the wrong? I don't actually see that as a black or white question or a right or wrong kind of situation because I've lived here for 22 years. I am Canadian and with a lot of family from Newfoundland, all of my family from Newfoundland, really. And I am, so viscerally, I feel for the miners. You could see in that video there was police brutality. And I know the reason why I used that Grand Falls, Windsor example was because I know that it's not just their paycheck that they're fighting for or their livelihood that they're fighting for. They're literally fighting for the breathing oxygen of their entire community because they know that once that mine goes, so does the entire community. And they're also fighting, they're defending generationally what they did, their father did, their grandfather, their great-great-grandfather behind them, with their entire town, aunts, uncles, everyone has been doing for generations. And that is a visceral thing. And so now on the other hand, when Trump tries to appeal to the coal mining audience in the United States, I feel like, are you mental? Like, coal is so dirty. It's an energy that can't be used anymore. Like, like, again, going back to Newfoundland, like there was a cod moratorium in 1992. All of the fish dried up. So I directly saw this exact same. I always equate the two when I try to explain to British people what my background or family is sort of like, because I've seen it firsthand. But ultimately, like, because it's so much more than just a paycheck. It's centuries of a way of life that they're striking for. Okay, and ultimately, I feel that like the sad thing is that like I know that police are just kettling. That's the tactic that they use, but also I know that. 9 times out of 10, it's police that have the stronger artillery and they have the stronger force, and they are the ones who are going to have the upper hand, and they're going to be the ones who prevail. And so I do see it as a many shades of gray situation, which I personally have seen my community firsthand affected by. So I am very moved by this. So number 4, the artist made this reenactment video of a battle that happened a long time ago. Why do you think he did this? My personal take on this is because it permeates, that happening permeates throughout British society still to this day, that I experience, at least from my Canadian eyes observing British culture for the past 22 years. And so it made thriving communities desolate and turned them into ghost towns. It made it essential that those towns, migration for employment was now essential. And it really kind of changed the power dynamic within the country of Britain. So London is the superpower because of that migration for employment. Begrudgingly, a lot of people from the north or from Wales had to migrate to the capital if they wanted to have any sort of future that was more than just being on unemployment, for example, because there was just not much. There's not much job prospects in those communities anymore. And then thirdly, and most excitingly, that people of his generation, they all, the creative output that happened from that time is unquestionable. And there's, I have worked in fashion forecasting, and all the talks that I've gone to, all the different genres that I have, watched and sort of investigated on different levels. All the people of his vintage who were like born in the 60s, really came up in the 80s. The common denominator in music, in fashion, in art, in anything, any creative sector, they all say that recession, everyone having to be on the dole, it gave them just enough money to get by, and it gave them that time freedom where they created it was, and the grit in their gut to create. So like post-punk, synth pop, new wave, electronica, alternative music, all of this was sort of like born out of that. And he is an artist of that ilk, of that generation, that they all like, I don't know if you know, but like UB40, who are like, Red Wine, or U2, those are both the names of the unemployment form that you would have to fill out to get on the dole, which is the unemployment. And I didn't know that until I lived here. But those were two enormous bands in the 80s. And that was all, the Thatcher government was just, it's gone down in history for tearing this country apart. Her mission was to tear apart the welfare state. And so it was for everyone who felt like their life was torn apart because of what that government did. It was almost like validation, or it was a nod to saying, I see you. I see what you went through. I see how these strikes affected your life, affected your generations and generations of life. I see how everything got uprooted. So that's why I think he did it. And almost no words need to be said, because it spoke volumes to so many people. Everyone knows the devastation that came out of that. And then the last one, do you think fights like this, one, is something that could happen again, or is it something only in the past? So how naive it would be to think that history would not repeat itself. History is always, always, always repeating itself. And why would right now be any different? Especially right now, we're in the midst of reaching like dire levels of unemployment, and reaching an enormous, maybe unprecedented recession. And the only thing I will leave with is that with any luck, we could also be reaching unprecedented levels of creative output, and that people will look back on and say, and the real crux of how this all came to pass is because I am a strong believer that with great pain comes great growth. So in 20 years' time from now, maybe someone will be making a coronavirus art piece. No words will be needed. People will understand what it meant, because it's how all these really important creative and cultural movements happened, because of something that was quite devastating and tore the fabric of the cultural landscape apart, sadly. Thank you. Bye.